All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're lucky enough to have Keith Hudgens from our corporate office here to give us our Wood Solutions CEU. And I always like to ask, if you have questions, please feel free to, raise your hand in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them when you think of them. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith so he can get going.
Great. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on this call. This is a 1-hour CEU entitled Wood Solutions. This is going to be a 1-hour credit with AIA. After the CEU, we're going to go ahead and register you with the AIA on the website and also provide you with a certificate. If you're on the DEC side, we'll go ahead and give you a certificate for that as well, and you can upload it manually. So throughout the presentation, we're going to be asking some trivia questions as well.
Yeah, so pay attention.
So be sure and pay attention. This is just some speak from AIA and a class description. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, we're happy to pass it along. But basically what we're going to do today is discuss wood veneer as an important and sustainable part of building, the overall aesthetic quality, and then basically what the different wood types are and how they affect the quality of the grain, and then what products can be developed from the wood veneers. And we'd like to talk about right up front about really, why is there a need for this CEU? What are we trying to accomplish here? And, in the past and very specifically in the recent past, we've been spending a lot of time indoors. So wood is absolutely the best and most sustainable way to bring nature indoors. I know a lot of people hear the buzzword biophilic out there, and there's a reason for that. People just feel better. They're more productive when you're able to put elements of outside inside. So, use that as a filter as we're going through this presentation. Wood's always a good product to use. It's never going to go out of style. And again, you're bringing that nature inside elements where people are stuck indoors all day. All right, so we're gonna start this off with a bit of a 101 section. Everybody's wood IQ is gonna go up a little bit today. You might learn probably more than you've ever wanted to know about wood. And then we're gonna dive into some of the products. So we'd like to start with the history of wood veneers. And if you're not familiar with that, like anything else, wood veneer was either discovered or came from discovery, or in this case, actually developed by the Egyptians about 2000 BC. So what you have now is the areas of Syria and Lebanon, which were on the outskirts of Egypt, where the Egyptians had to basically go out, cut down trees and bring them back to Egypt. So because it was such a labor-intensive activity, they actually considered trees to be like precious metals or stones. So they made the best use they could out of them, which meant that they cut them down into veneers. And they're still pulling out artifacts from different tombs and pyramids over in Egypt. If you ever make it up to Neocon, the Field Museum's got a wonderful collection, or the British Museum, probably the best in the world. So you'll see a lot of furniture or artwork where they've actually taken trees and cut them into veneers and stain them and turn them into art. So pretty stagnant for a while, and then in the 17th century, the cutting lathe was invented, and that brought us to the modernization of today, where we can actually manufacture veneers at a high rate of speed and develop products quickly out of them. In particular, if you're interested in really who ran with the ball first, Thomas Chippendale, famous furniture designer, actually started using veneers for his furniture very early on, and then the piano industry in the US figured out that they could use more species and actually control acoustics. So of interest, that's really where veneers came from and how we got to today. Again, with biophilic design and bringing nature indoors, we also like to discuss sustainability right up front as well. And wood is the most sustainable product on the planet. And in fact, when it's grown and forested in a manageable way, like in the US, you've actually got more trees now than you did 100 years ago. So this is going to be the most renewable resource you can use for residential or commercial construction. Again, if you'd like a copy of this presentation, this is Dr. Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace, and it's about a 5-minute video. We don't have time to watch it during the CEU. But he does a wonderful job of really summing up just why it's a good idea to use trees, why it's a good idea to use wood in commercial and residential applications. All right, so we're going to dive into really what we're here to talk about today, and that is really the foundation of our wood program. And National's been around for 40 years and been selling wood a large percentage of that time. So we actually expanded our wood offerings about 6 or 7 years ago and really thought that this was the best way to introduce the entire portfolio. So we'll start with the wood veneers, and really of note in our industry, a wood veneer is typically defined as a piece of wood that's 1/8 of an inch or thinner. And it's something that is so thin it would have to be backed, right? It can't stand alone. So different manufacturers use different backers. You might find a poly backer, you might find a rigid backer. We actually use a foil and paper backer, which we'll discuss when we get to the product section. But the biggest difference in what we do is we actually slice our veneers to 0.3 millimeters thin, right? And in the industry, typically you're going to see about 0.9 millimeters. So we're getting about 300% more yield out of a tree. And exponentially across a job, this is huge. So you talk about, number one, using the most renewable resource on the planet. And then number two, right, getting the most yield out of it. So this is absolutely a fantastic product to use, not only for sustainable reasons, but because we're going to get such a large yield out of a tree that you're going to be able to do large installations and run them off of the same flitch, right? Which just means the same tree. You're going to get the same graining. You're going to get the same color. You're going to get consistency across an installation. All right. And then everything that you're going to see on this presentation today is going to be AA architectural grade wood veneer. This is furniture grade. Again, this is a little more information than we'll cover today as far as this whole chart here. Again, if you'd like it, we'll provide a link to the presentation. But basically, AA just means it's a premium veneer, right? And it's going to have the least amount of defects, and it's going to be the highest quality you can purchase. So this is furniture grade veneer. This is the same veneer that the likes of Herman Miller and Steelcase and Geiger all compete with us for. Right, and then a couple more things about AA grade veneers is that these are going to be center balanced, book matched, and actually cut from the heartwood, which is inside the sap content of the tree. So again, you're getting the best quality wood, and we'll talk about book matching when we get to the wood section, but basically this is just going to mean it's cut in flitches and it's allowed to open up like a book, creating a mirrored effect, and then center balanced just to give it a nice aesthetic effect on the wall. All right, and another thing we like to talk about up front that veneers are coming from a living source, right? It's not a laminate, it's not a controlled product. So we want to make sure that everybody on this call understands that when you see a sample in your library, or you see the smiling face of a rep coming in and presenting a beautiful piece of Paldeo, right? That is from a dead flitch. That is a tree that has been used in the past, and the flitch from the next tree might not look exactly like that, right? So from tree to tree, you're going to get different figuring, you're going to get different coloring, and that's the beauty of using wood products. Anybody that's worked with wood knows this. But if color is important to you and you want to say you want to match your case goods or you want to match your millwork, get with your rep and make sure you provide them with a control sample, and we will stain these veneers to whatever shade you would like. If color is not important, obviously, if you are working within the same species, it's going to be close, but it will vary from tree to tree. So just remember that. Right. And then when we talk about where we're using the wood from, there's typically 4 areas of the tree that we would cut from. Some that we don't use. We don't use the stump of the tree. Right. You can see why, how gnarly and knotty that is. That would be probably ground down into sawdust, made into paper products, et cetera, et cetera. That's about $100,000 piece of burl sitting on the ground there. So if you've ever wondered what a piece of walnut burl looks like, that's it. That would be cut into a block, right? And then sliced to 0.3 millimeters thin. and then block matched and actually laid out on the foil and paper. So we can do exotics, we can do veneers like your walnut burls. And then the crotch of the tree, simply where the tree grows apart. This would probably be used for a fine piece of furniture, cut thick, lacquered. But you can see that really beautiful figuring where the tree has grown apart. Right. And then the trunk of the tree, this is going to be 99.9% of what we do, right? If you know what a quarter cut is, which we'll talk about, a flat cut, rotary cut, rift cut, it's all coming from the trunk of the tree. So this is going to be the part of the tree that we use most. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. And if you've ever wondered when we talk about heartwood or sapwood, this is just simply an image that shows you. You don't want sap content in your veneer, so we're just simply using the heartwood of the tree that is moved away from the sapwood. All right, and then manufacturing. I think when people don't understand how wood is manufactured, and like say you look at a wooden door, you might just think it was a big fat tree that they cut big sheets out of and glued it to a backer. That's just not how it works. When you're working with trees, you're not typically working with humongous varieties. You're cutting down from what might be 4 to 8 inch sections of a tree, depending on if it's a flat or quarter cut. So what we're doing in the manufacturing process is we're actually cutting these trees down and cutting them into flitches, right? So we'll have an illustration of that coming up and how that works. But again, these are sliced to 0.3 millimeters thin, and your flitches are going to be anywhere from 8 to 10 feet tall, depending on the variety. If it's a natural selection, or maybe even a recon. So we'll go a little bit more into that slicing and aesthetic, but we're going to talk about how really you would select a veneer and really where you start. And whether you're an architect or whether you're a designer, typically you're going to start with color, right? And that's determined by the species. After that, the graining is going to be determined by the slicing method. Matching, something we do on our side, will determine also part of that aesthetic. And then coloring, whether or not you want to custom color the veneer. So that's really going to all come into play when you specify any wood product. Now, there's about 90,000 species of trees on the planet. But we've narrowed it down to about 100 or 200. And the reason for that is about 89,800 of those trees are either too soft or have too much sap content, or, just aesthetically, they're not pleasing. So the industry typically plays with 100 to 200 different species, right? Domestic exotics, I guess that really depends on where you're from. If you live in Africa, then a US species would be exotic. So we do have managed forests all over the world, and we do select trees from all over the world. So it could be a Paldeo from East Asia, or a Wingay from West Africa. So, and everything in between. But the good news is, even with 100 to 200 species, you're going to have, all your lights, mediums, darks, everything in between, right? Your honey tones, right? You can see a few examples of what's on the screen here. So plenty of colors to start with. All right, after that, you're going to select your cut. All right, and then when we were talking about manufacturing and we were looking at those flitches sitting on the ground, this diagram is going to help you make sense of it. So when you take a tree, and they're just showing you a small little section of the log here, but just imagine an 8 to 10 foot section of the tree. And this is what's called a flat cut. And a flat cut is going to be literally half the tree. So if anybody ever says a half round or a half cut, they mean a flat cut in our industry. We call it a flat cut. So in that flat cut, you're going to get a big cross section of grain, and you're going to get a wider flitch, right? So when you're slicing these flitches, you're literally slicing them, letting them match open, and then you're going to lay them out in sequence on that foil and paper backing, right? So from that tree, they're going to be sequenced on the sheet, and then from sheet to sheet to sheet. So if you have 100 sheets of material, it's going to be in order on that flitch, so you get consistency of color and grain, right? And what happens is, when you cut a flat cut, you're going to get a lot of grain in there. You're going to get a lot of that cathedraling. You're going to get a lot of just that dynamic focal look on the wall. So this would have been, I think this is a flat cut Mexican rosewood, exactly what the designer's intent was, right? You have a kind of a muted floor, so you want that wall to be the focal point. And I think they achieved that in that installation shot. Okay, so a quarter cut probably already makes sense to you. You're just simply taking a quarter of the tree, right? So now you're getting a smaller cross section of the tree, and you get a quieter grain. You get something a little more lineal. So if you have a little bit more going on in the room and you want the wall to simply blend in, right, probably want to go in the direction of a quarter cut. So that looks like probably a quarter cut teak to me. And then a rift cut, if you've ever wondered what maybe a white oak or red oak rift is, there's a few species out there like oak and cherry that don't grow evenly. And what you have to do is cut it on a radius just to fudge a flat surface. So you can see this slicing diagram on the left here where they're actually cutting at a bit of a radius. What you get from a rift cut is just the necessity of, if you want to use oak, this is going to how you're going to control flaking, control the grain, and then actually get an aesthetically pleasing piece of wood. So this is going to be cut down into what will look like a quarter cut. You can see the image of the product down on the right there. And then not a lot of takers on this one. We can actually peel the tree like an onion, which is called a rotary cut. If you think it looks like plywood, it's because that's how plywood's made. You just simply peel the tree and then that's glued to a cheap factor. So if you want an industrial look, absolutely, we can cut that into a rotary cut as well. All right, and then we'll talk about veneer matching. Again, this is just a method that you see here where they're actually laying out these individual flitches, and they're actually stitching them together here. So just an example of how that can be done. We typically glue them down to the foil and paper backer. And then everything's book matched, right? So we've already talked about how those flitches are cut and then how they open up like a book, every other piece. Well, that's going to give you that mirrored effect. It's going to give you that really nice aesthetic quality. And you can see in the background here, right? And you could even see where the flitch starts and stops. That gives you that really nice mirrored effect. And again, sequenced from start to finish. This is something you'll actually probably not just a mental note, but you would want to write down. If you're actually doing a ceiling or a wall and you're working with this product and say typically 3x9, 3x10 sheets, if you have to do let's say a 20-foot tall wall and you have to butt the ends together, or you're doing a ceiling where you're having to butt ends together, you're going to want to specify this product end matched. All right. So as the sheets are sequenced from 1 to say 100 left to right, if you were going to go ahead and end match those sheets, now they're going to be sequenced and matched from top to bottom as well, right? So top left 1, bottom left 2. Again, you go up to the top row 3, next row bottom 4. So they're sequenced in that order for your installers, and it ensures that not only, again, that they're matched from left to right, but again, from top to bottom. If you don't do that, it's going to look a bit like patchwork. Probably not going to be happy aesthetically with that, but all your reps are versed in this, as is our customer service. So it's going to be something they would flag as well. And this is more just for your information. We talked about how all of our products are book matched, and we also talked about how oak and cherry do not grow evenly. Well, if you book match, say, a piece of oak or cherry and light reflects off of it at a bit of an angle, what's going to happen is you're going to book match this product, and now every other flitch, the light is going to reflect in a different direction. So if you've ever heard of barber poling in wood, or if you've ever wondered what in the world does that mean, that is what that means. That means somebody's laid out sheets of wood, they've book matched it, and now the light's reflecting in different angles. So if you see this piece of wood in the left corner of the slide where it looks like striped wall covering, that's what you get. So if you do not flag woods like cherry and maple on the manufacturing side, you can get that barber poling. So it is something that any purveyor of wood that has been doing this for a while would know to check and red flag. So I don't believe I've ever seen any barber poling in any of our products, but I have seen them, in some millwork. So that's just more of, for your information, we'll control that on our side. All right, and then where Mother Nature leaves off, we actually pick up with recon veneers. Okay, and these are actually engineered species, and there's a few reasons for why we do this. Number one is possibly to mimic a species that your customer's interested in, but simply doesn't have the budget for, like say a zebra wood. Well, we can actually make a zebra wood out of poplar and pine, right? And we can drop the price for you. And actually make a large run of that with the way we manufacture. It's also a good sustainable way to manufacture veneers. Since we are using more readily available species, we can get more of them from managed forests. It's a consistent way to specify wood, and it's readily available. Another reason why we would do recons is simply to create colors that do not exist in nature. So we from time to time will get requests for, you know, something that is gray or looks like barnwood, or, you know, something that has a little more orange in it. So, you know, we can actually control the colors and the grains of the wood ourselves, right? And this is a pretty interesting process. We're not allowed to actually see the slicing method, but we do know that the veneers are actually stacked into a brick. Typically they're rotated and then sliced and stained to look like whatever you want them to look like. All right, so so at this point, that's really just the 101. So you have a fundamental understanding of veneers, a little bit of the history of veneers, and I think Heather has a quick Starbucks trivia question from that first section. If Heather, if you would monitor the chat room and see who answers your question correctly first.
All right. So the first question is going to be, how thick, or should I say how thin, are all of our wood veneers cut? Wow. Whitney was like, I think she typed it in before I even like finished the question.
That's awesome.
There's a lot. Yeah, I think Whitney was first. It's popping. And now it's just like auto-populating and I can't keep up. But yeah. First question.
Fantastic. I'm not surprised. Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for obviously listening and chiming in on that answer. This brings us to the product section. And I think you have a good primer now and a good understanding. Oh, I'm sorry, there's two people in the waiting room. I think we had a couple people drop off. Okay, I think you have a good primer and a good understanding of wood veneers now. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we can make them into. And around 7 years ago, you know, we went from really being really just a sheet goods provider of wood to moving into architectural panels, acoustics, phenolics, Division 10 custom screens. I mean, just really all manner of wood. So this has been a wonderful journey for us, and I think this is a nice way to kind of segue into this section. And we're going to start with flexible wood veneer. This is an AIA course, and I will have to keep this generic out of respect for AIA's wishes. So I'll go through here and stay generic with what I'm showing you. And then AIA allows 10 minutes at the end of the presentation for you to ask Heather brand-specific questions, project-specific questions, really anything you want to discuss at that point. Also throughout, we love to overnight sample. So as I'm going through this section and you're looking at these projects, if you'd like something overnighted, jot it down, get with Heather and we'll make sure you'll have it tomorrow. Okay, so flexible wood veneer has been around a very long time. This is not an R&D product you're using on your customers. It's in hotels, casinos, airports, healthcare facilities. It's all over the place, right? And we talked about these being, you know, AA architectural grade veneers. These are the finest veneers you can put on the wall. Typically going to be in 3x9, 3x10 sheets. You can go down to 3x8s with the recons. But the 300% more yield is a big number compared to other manufacturers of veneers out there. But there's another number I like to throw out there, and that is, if you were looking at a 3x8 sheet of solid 1/2 inch wood, we can get 30 sheets of this material out of the same amount of wood. So again, you start thinking about exponentially on that wall, how many panels can we get, right, out of one solid piece of wood? So that's a big number. This is a pretty ingenious product. It's a 5-layer construction. You have your 0.3 millimeter veneer. You've got your glue barrier, your foil, another glue barrier, and then paper behind that. And where this came from, our manufacturing partner actually used to make television cabinets. And if anybody grew up around the time I did, you had these large wooden television cabinets that sat on the ground, and they had very hot tubes inside. So what they had to do to protect that wood was actually back it with foil, right? Well, what they figured out was a few things. Number one, that foil made the wood dimensionally stable. So you could cut the wood thinner, thus the 0.3 millimeter. Number two is when you back that thin of a piece of wood with foil, it allows you to do inside and outside turns, or like you see in San Jose Airport here, just a curved wall, right? That's easy, but nothing, you could not do that with solid wood. And then number three, the foil layer actually also provided a moisture barrier, so moisture could not get to the face of the wood. So it protected it in that manner as well. So really pivotal, again, invention coming from invention, right? So all the products you're going to see today are Class A fire rated, or they're available as Class A fire rated. These products are flexible and durable. Wood veneer is going to be as impact resistant as whatever backing you put it on, right? So if you put it on metal, it's going to be as impact resistant as metal. If you put it on high impact drywall, same thing, MDF, right? Most everybody's going to just put this on sheetrock. That is where it typically exists. And again, 3x9, 3x10 sheets, you're going to be for most species in the $6 to $12 a square foot range. And then your installers, typically $2 to $4 a square foot. So you can literally get out the door installed for architectural grade veneer for under $10. So keep that in mind. This is going to be the best value option for architectural grade veneers you can actually purchase, right? And you can bond to most any substrate. These are pre-stained and pre-finished in the factory. If you want to custom color, if you want to add a sheen level, right? If you want to potentially change the sheet size, we simply ask for a 400 square foot minimum. So very, very small minimum to actually customize this product as well. All right, and then we're going to talk about a few projects here and show you some beauty shots. So this is Alice Tully Hall, a job we worked on with Freeform. We supplied the veneers. And this is actually from one tree. This was an African Moabi, right? It was a big tree, but because of that slicing method, we were actually able to get enough yield out of there to do this entire hall. So the back walls are going to be the veneer microperforated and then applied to acoustic panels. The side walls are acrylic backed and then applied to a plexi. And then in the overhang areas, facades, typical walls just on your garden variety sheetrock. And then the doors were actually had a poly backer on them. So this was very interesting because this was all numbered and sequenced in the order that it was installed. So as you came up to, the acrylic walls, those were actually continued from the acoustic wall and then into the doors. And so it just made sure that you've got a very consistent installation. And because those side walls are acrylic backed on plexi, you can actually backlight them. So when theater lights are down, that African Moabi is still glowing on the side. So absolutely a beautiful facility and a great case study in the use of these veneers. Okay, so from grand projects down to very simple installations, they've just taken the veneers and kind of cross-hatched the grains here to create an interesting elevator lobby. Okay, right. These are just up in a healthcare facility where they've added a little bit of sheen to it. And again, this is real wood. So make sure wherever you would use edge guards, right? If this were millwork, you'd use edge guards. If this was wall covering, you'd use edge guards. So if there's gurneys flying around, be sure and use edge guards. Always a good policy, no matter what material you're using. And this is another example of the acrylic backed product where you've laser cut out a paragraph here and a quote up at George Mason University. And these are the projects we absolutely love to work on, because a lot of times our customers are simply thinking outside the box and saying, okay, we see you have the acrylic back. We see that you can put it on plexi. Can we project light through, maybe letters? So these are great projects for us. We can also print on this veneer. As you would guess, it's like running a big sheet of paper through a digital printer. So we can do white ink, we can do 4-color process, really anything you want. All right, and this job on the left, pretty interesting case study as well. Disney wanted to do an inlay into eucalyptus. It ended up being a little on the pricey side. So we actually recommended taking the eucalyptus sheets, which that is actually a sheet of eucalyptus, and then we could lay down a layer of white ink so you did not see that eucalyptus grain showing through any of the other grains. And then instead of inlaying the artwork in as other lasered out species, we would actually drop high resolution scans of those species into the artwork. So this is all digitally designed, and this is all digitally printed on the left. All right, so pretty neat job there. And then on the right, that is a military installation where they printed nautical maps on teak. And again, right on point. Teak's a great nautical wood and a great choice for printing something like that. All right, and we all know that we are in a branded world now. So we're all working with national accounts, right, as customers, and we can print really whatever CMYK value you want. So whether you have a Pantone color, a Benjamin Moore color, it can all be converted to CMYK. So if you wanted to do Home Depot orange zebra wood for a break room, absolutely we can do that. And because we can actually digitally print at our headquarters in Little Rock, it's simply something that you send us over a request and we can print it on a memo sample. Now, keep in mind, the color of that wood is going to change what the ink color looks like. So it's very important up front to get a sample of whatever it is you're looking at. Obviously, the lighter color of the wood, the less it's going to change the color. All right, just an example of white ink. Again, looks like it's printed on teak. So a lot of really fun subcategories with this flexible wood veneer. And again, this is H&R Block basically ask, can you take the acrylic backed wood, print on that, and then make a timeline for our headquarters. So absolutely. And we didn't know we could absolutely do it, but obviously we figured out a way. So again, great little subcategories for this product, but garden variety is going to be your 3x9, 3x10 sheets on drywall. Heather, do you have any questions on the wood veneers? Did we have any more on that, or was your point 3 the only one?
No, we do have one other question. What are two benefits of the foil core?
Well, that's a good one.
Two benefits of the foil. Let's see. Oh. I think Whitney got it first again. Peter only gave me one. Oh, wait. Yeah. Whitney got it again.
We could just send a $25 gift card to Whitney.
Yeah, she must be like the fastest typer in the company.
She's already got all the answers up, and it's just cut and paste.
Let's give someone else it. Come on.
All right, Whitney's done. She gets 2 gift cards. Okay, all right, so let's move on. Thank you. That's a good question, Heather, and good job, Whit. Okay, so as we have been selling wood veneers for a very long time, along the way we kept getting questions from our specifiers, from our manufacturing partners out in the field that were getting the specifications. Can we take these veneers and apply them to architectural panels? And the answer is always yes, absolutely. If you want the architectural panels to match the wood veneer on the drywall, we'll just send you the veneers and you can make the panels. So we really got tired of sending that business away. So about 7 years ago, we started investing in manufacturing and a millwork facility down in Florida. So absolutely, the first thing we did was purchase the equipment necessary to manufacture these architectural panels. So very simple, just like any millwork provider, we take our veneers, and in this case, we're applying them to a MDF and then edge banding them. All right, and there's a few reasons why you would want to go from, just a veneer directly on drywall to an architectural panel system. Number one is just that dimensional factor. It's just a different aesthetic, and if you want that aesthetic to be dimensional, you're going to want to use panels. It can be quite functional. If you want to run electrical or plumbing behind the wall, you can do that. If you want to bring the wall out and put stays on the wall, if you need people to access it, they can do that. Can be used indoors and outdoors. We'll discuss our phenolic product up here in just a minute. And then we can do progressive or modular systems if you want to build it directly from the floor up, or if you want to be able to remove the panels. So very versatile. And what we like to talk about when we talk about our panels, whether they're architectural, wood, acoustic, phenolic, we can fully assist with engineering and detailing. We have our own staff that can assist. So if you wanted some help up front and you wanted to see how one of our systems worked in a interior exterior application, we're absolutely willing to help out with that. And then also, because we've added so many architectural panel products, we've also added the integrated hardware. So we've got 3 systems that we'll talk about as well that complement these panels very well. And then a wide array of finish options. This is a wood CEU, so we're going to talk about wood. But if you wanted say an old school, just regular colored phenolic, we can do that. If you wanted wrapped panels, if you want really any kind of a glass panel, whatever types of products you want to mix and match with these systems, you can do it. So again, I'm gonna keep this generic. If you have specific questions about these systems at the end, absolutely ask Heather, and again, we'll shoot samples your way. But this is simply a progressive panel system, right? This channel system attaches directly to the drywall, and then we simply make our veneers into a thin phenolic, and they slide into the channels. So just like the veneers on the wall side, this is going to be the most economical way to get your panels up on the wall. And what you're going to deal with in here is a maximum of a 2-foot wide footprint by really whatever height you want, up to 10 feet. So you see they probably did 2x2s and 2x8s here. They could have gone all 2x2s. They could have mixed up 2x2s and 2x4s. However you want to go vertically in that 2-foot footprint, you can do that to change the aesthetic, right? So this is just, again, a progressive system, which means you just build this channel system from the floor up. And again, wide variety of finishes here, woods, regular colored phenolics, however you want to do that. And then we have a couple of modular systems. All right. One of them is a vertical post system. And then one of them is a horizontal rail system. It's very important that you understand the difference between the two, because they're very close. All right. If you have a radius wall, as you'd well imagine, if you have a horizontal post, it's not going to work too good because it's a very straight line. So what you have to do if you're in a situation, and these are just regular gray colored phenolics and actually some printed phenolic at Hoover Dam Welcome Center, we've actually put up vertical posts and hanging bars to where we could do this radius wall. So if you need curved walls, then you would want to go with the vertical post system. And again, Heather has all the literature on this, all the brand names we can talk about in the end. So we can manufacture not only the panels, but also supply this vertical post system. If you're just literally running out straight walls, then the horizontal rail system would be the way you want to go. So this is just going to be a horizontal rail system. You're not going to have to worry about blocking on the wall. Simply going to attach this rail system. The machine panels are going to have your clip system where you just hang on the hanging bar. So this is something, again, if you want to mix in different panel types, recess a television into the wall, right? Absolutely, kind of any kind of mix and match you want to do. All right, so Heather, do you have any questions on the architectural panel system? I'm going to stop at the end of each section if you have any trivia questions to throw out there. Did we lose Heather?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. Did you have one on architectural panel systems?
We do. I'm going to change it up a little bit. So we mentioned a curved wall installation. Does anybody remember what project that was? Okay, Whitney, you've been told to not answer anymore.
Well, she can't win, we said. We didn't say she couldn't answer.
Let's see. Hold on. They're all popping up so fast. We'll see who was the winner. I got a no fair, I'm driving. Let's hang on. Okay.
Well, hold on. How'd they type? How'd they type no fair, I'm driving? That's longer than Hoover Dam.
I know. I think Peter was next after Whitney.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Okay, moving on. Okay, so after all of the questions we had over the years on turning our wood veneers into architectural panels, the biggest question behind that was, can we use your wood veneers outdoors? And the answer is absolutely no. Wood veneers have to acclimate to a HVA system for 48 hours. They have to be used indoors. You do not want these things outdoors, right? That's not what they're for. But because that question was asked so often, we decided to go down a road of, well, can we make the veneers into phenolic panels? Phenolic panels have been around for a very long time, 80 plus years. They've been used for anything from exterior cladding to bowling alley lanes to lab tables, right? So it's going to be the most impact resistant, chemical resistant, people resistant, weather resistant, water resistant product out on the market. So we actually approached a manufacturing partner and were told that they could not make phenolic panels out of wood because wood was too thick and the wear layer stood up too tall and moisture wicked into the side. So we asked them what thickness wood they were using, and it was 0.9. So we keep going back to this 0.3, but for a good reason, because the wood veneers were 0.3, they retested, they manufactured the phenolic panels, and they worked perfectly. Those were weather tested up, I think they stopped at about 35 years. When they successfully made the first phenolic panels out of our wood veneers, they actually did something called a boil test where they boiled the panels in water for 48 hours. No delaminating, right? No swelling. So again, this is going to be the strongest, most durable water chemical proof product you can have out there. And I'm going to quickly explain the phenolic process. Basically what you're doing, in this case, you're taking 4x10 sheets of craft paper. You're saturating them with phenolic resin. Okay. And then they're going to be the color of whatever you want the core to be. And in our case, we always use brown. You can change it for an 18 sheet minimum. But you stack those sheets of craft paper to the thickness you want your panel to be. And then you're going to put your decorative layer on the top and bottom. Now that used to always be paper, right? Even if it was a panel that looked like wood, it was just printed wood, right? So in this case, now we can actually do real wood on the top and bottom, and then a sheet of melamine on the top and bottom. And then it's heated to 500 degrees Fahrenheit and about 1500 PSI. So what happens is that melamine presses through the decorative layer and it marries with that phenolic core. So it ceases to become a layered product, right? So now you have something that can't delaminate. You have something that's a compound that can live indoors, outdoors, on vertical or horizontal surfaces. We thought we knew when we had this thing launched at NeoCon and won Best of NeoCon Gold, that we really knew what direction this product was going to go, but it's gone in so many different directions now. So this is Bryant-Denny Stadium. The exterior case goods are actually made from our phenolics. Really didn't anticipate that. Again, this is really what I went over with that first slide. We discussed how these products were made. Again, these are going to be available typically in any species that we have. 18 sheet minimum if you're doing a custom, and then check with your rep on species because we do stock quite a few of these. All right, so we ended up doing a lot of exterior cladding with this building or with this product. And even simple installations that you used to have to switch out a lot. And in this case, this is a hotel lobby where they would typically use maybe a vinyl plank or just a regular wood plank where they switch this out to phenolic. This is something they can put up and forget about it. And you can see on the right, we'll talk about some more of the capabilities here, but we've actually CNC'd that palm design into the columns as well. So this is in a breakfast area. And again, you've got a lot of bags and things running into it. So you've now introduced a high impact surface. Right, and we love to print on things. I think we demonstrated that in the wood veneer section. So this is no different. You can print on the wood veneer, and then after you put that melamine sheet over it and take it through the heating and pressurizing, now you've got a sheet of phenolic that you can use for wayfinding or tabletops or really whatever you want to make out of it. And because of the melamine finish on this material, if somebody were to draw on these two gentlemen with Sharpies, you could actually clean this off with acetone. So again, this is how they make lab tables. So this is going to be the best of all worlds for a material that really works just like wood. You can use it wherever you use wood. It's just going to be a phenolic version of it. Okay, and because this material is so dimensionally stable, you're going to be able to remove a large portion of the material and it's still going to be dimensionally stable. So these are teak screens. I think about 80% of the material is actually removed to create this design. These are 4x10s literally standing straight up. They were simply slid into a channel system. And then small dowels just keep the panels aligned in that row. So again, very simple process. This is just cut down on the CNC or the laser machine. And they're just a very simple method of installation, but really an amazing aesthetic, right? There's even more material removed. So you can control the privacy based on how much material you're removing from these screens or how much you're leaving. Now you can submit your own design. We simply load it into the CNC CAD system, or you can select from designs that we have already as well. All right, and because the phenolics again are not only people proof but also weatherproof, this material can be used outdoors as well. So all we have to do is simply tweak our systems, right, with exterior materials, and then it's simply provided as either an exterior fastened or a concealed fastened panel. So if you want to see the fasteners, you can see them like in this case, or if you want them concealed, we can do that as well. So again, this is something that with the weather testing we've done, you put these up outdoors and then you forget about them. These are going to last for decades outside. All right, and these are available as Class A. You can do the real wood veneer option, or we can go old school phenolic. So again, if you want to value engineer a job and you just want a colored panel, or you want us to print wood and make a panel out of that, we can actually VE our own product and get you down to a better price. Now, the most beautiful product you're going to be able to specify is going to be the compact wood product because it does just have a better aesthetic. But the other products that use a synthetic wood option are absolutely lovely as well. So again, open closed reveals, and just want to remind everybody that we will assist with engineering and details on any product out there. All right, so it didn't just come down to panels. So this is just a situation again where you're cutting the phenolics down into planks. You can see that these were simply just cut to size on site, and then you still just do your drop-ins, right? So you see your light drop-ins, your fan drop-ins. And again, you put that ceiling up and you forget about it. If they're using pressure treated lumber, any kind of exterior wood product, you're risking, whitening, crusting around the edges, fading, that sort of thing. So again, great product to put outside. Down to a very simple face fasten installation for these racetrack gas stations. So these were just shipped out with 9-foot planks and hardware, and we actually supplied the labor as well. So they would just go meet the materials, cut them down, and then just basically face fasten them to the columns and walls. These actually had a light track running behind them as well, so you've got a little illumination behind the wood. All right, and even down to concealed fasteners, right? So a little bit more elaborate, but again, aesthetically very, very pleasing. All right, Heather, I would imagine you would either have or be able to come up with a question regarding phenolics.
Yes, we have. So what are two uses for phenolic that are not cladding or panels?
Good one.
I'm gonna go, well, Whitney, you're not allowed. Jill. Amy Norris answered, but she said planks and tabletops, and I think planks are cladding. So, yeah, Jill won. She said lockers and screens.
Okay, that's kind of more what we were looking for. You're not wrong, Amy, but yeah, that was.
Okay.
Good job. Thanks for all the replies too. Everybody's listening. Okay, so after the questions about architectural panels and phenolics, the next question was, can you do anything with wood to mitigate sound? This is a big problem in a lot of places, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, right? It affects your health. It affects people's ability to recover, right? It affects people's customer satisfaction in a hotel, right? We all know what the biggest complaint in a hotel is. So we actually partnered with a German company to perfect the manufacturing of acoustic panels, and have since moved all that manufacturing again over to the States down in Florida. So any of the products that you see, whether they're panels or planks or baffles or clouds or beams, we can actually make those out of acoustic material. And it's really a very simple process. All we're doing is we're taking the wood veneer and we're micro perforating, and now we can actually nano perforate with the laser machine that we have, and then backing that with acoustic fleece. You have a honeycombed MDF core behind that, more acoustic fleece, and then you have basically a backer that allows the sound to travel through, and then just basically turn into heat behind the wall, right? So it's very important that you understand that the open face of this product is what is going to help determine the NRC rating. So when you micro perforate a panel, you might look at the two panels that are on display here, and one of them has larger perforations. You might think that that has a better NRC rating, right? And just to back up, NRC rating is noise reduction coefficient. So if you're new to the acoustic side, when you see that NRC equals 0.75 to 0.95, that just means the noise reduction coefficient is 0.75, which is 75%, or 0.95, which is 95%. It absorbs 75 to 95% of the sound that hits that wall, right? And then your goal is for that wall to absorb it and to let that sound die behind the panel. So as you would imagine, as the cavity grows behind the panel, the NRC rating goes up. So if you're looking at doing a micro-perforated plank with a simple clip that gives you an 1.25 inch, just a 1/4 inch cavity behind the panel, you're going to get about a 0.75 NRC. If you do a drop-in ceiling and you have a 8 to 16 inch cavity behind that plank or panel, you're going to get about a 0.95. So this is a very, very high NRC rating. This is a lot of sound being absorbed. So typically in a space, if you're going to have noise pollution, if you're going to have public speaking, you're going to want to put about as much acoustic material as you have square feet on the floor. So 200 square feet on the floor, you want to try to somehow get 200 square feet on the walls and ceilings. And since sound rises, probably hits the ceiling and then the wall you're facing, you want to try to get acoustic material on those walls. So what these do is the sound energy actually hits the panel, right? It goes behind the wall, turns to heat, and then it in turn is absorbed by us humans. So energy is just always recycled. And if you look at the two charts here, when you go, what is NRC? Like how do they measure 75 or 95? Basically what you're doing is you're taking 100 hertz to 5,000 hertz, 100 being bass, 5,000 being treble, right? And then you're measuring how much of that sound can be absorbed by the panel. So as you see, if you can read that, it's not as good in the bass level. So whenever you're sitting in the movie theater and you hear that bass coming from a theater beside you, it's because bass is a little bit harder to absorb. So when you get to the speaking area where we talk, up to the 400s to thousands, that's where it does a really good job. So it does a really good job of mitigating sound produced by people. And then when you're talking about exterior noise, planes, traffic going by, that's a different animal. That's sound transmission. So what we deal with typically are room acoustics. And again, these products are some of the best in the world. The NRC rating is super high. And we can change the perforation profiles. This is really just for your information. Again, you may not be able to read this, but when you're looking at these two perforation profiles, you have one is just called finest. It's just a micro perforated product, and you have one that's 4.4 1.5. That if you ever see that, it might have 6.62 4.4 1.5. It just means that from perforation to perforation, left to right, is 4 millimeters. From top to bottom, it's 4 millimeters, and then the circumference of the perforation is 1.5 millimeters. That's all that means. It just means what aesthetically does that panel look like. So if you had 8.84, then you'd have very large perforations very far apart, right? But again, it's the open face of that material that really determines how effective that NRC rating is going to be. I know that was a lot on acoustics, but I think it's important to understand it if you're going to specify it or represent it. So again, you have applications like this where they've simply said, well, we want to do panels, we want to do planks, we want to outfit this auditorium with wood, but we want you to make it acoustic and we want it micro perforated. So again, whatever you want to make out of our wood products, we can make acoustic. All right, just a simple baffle here. Again, just made exactly like you saw in that exploded view. Because this is in an auditorium where you're going to have a lot of large groups talking. And again, that sound rises, right? This is going to absorb a lot of that sound that's, that comes back and echoes and hits you and you can't hear the person across the table. So again, very important for mitigating sound. All right, Heather, I'm guessing you have a question about acoustics.
I'm muted. Hello.
All right.
What does NRC stand for? And you can spell it wrong.
And we'll spell it wrong.
Oh gosh, hold on. I got to open it up and see who was first. Well, Whitney was first again, but Peter is second. Well, you guys are like neck and neck.
If he's already,
we're going to do a typing.
Peter's already won. Get somebody else.
Okay, John Gurley, you're next.
Fantastic, John.
New person.
I'm glad people are listening. Thank you all.
I think Dylan actually, I think most people spelled it right, so. Better than
Dylan, I'll buy you a coffee whenever you want. Okay, again, thanks for listening and thanks for the input, everybody. So again, after kind of the three big categories that we really took our veneers and made a concentrated effort to develop programs, we just started getting all manner of requests for jobs we were already working on. So really Division 10 has become a big part of what we do. I was actually lucky enough to be down at the manufacturing facility as they were putting together the locker rooms for the Atlanta Hawks, and pretty fascinating. They were doing 3 different versions. It's kind of interesting. The Hawks organization made phenolic lockers for the Atlanta Hawks home locker room. They used a laminate for the visitors locker room, and then I don't think the referees got anything. So they just kind of went in order of how it really should have been. But but because the equipment that we are partnered with now really anything can be loaded into a CAD and manufactured. So again, that brings us into an area where we're now doing a lot of lockers, right, and a lot of restroom compartments. So phenolics have been used for a long time, again, for restroom compartments. And we talked a little bit earlier about the fact that if you write on these walls, you can clean them with acetone, you can clean off Sharpie. So I know there's quite a few people on this call that have probably written on bathroom walls before, and as such, you can absolutely clean that up. And now you can actually make them out of wood. So you get a lot of your 4- and 5-star hotels, you get a lot of your higher end restaurants. This is an appropriate product. Or if you go into, the Delta Lounge restrooms, they have these nice floor to ceiling restrooms. So there's a lot of opportunities, not only for your garden variety phenolic partitions and bathrooms, but also your floor to ceiling cabinets, right? And anything in between. We're actually working on a couple of locker jobs in healthcare right now. As we've gone along and presented this, we even had a customer comment yesterday that they were working on some lockers in back of house for a hotel, right? A lot of times hotels have hundreds of people working there. So they got to put their stuff somewhere. So this is something that you absolutely are going to want to consider when specifying for these properties or getting involved in. Heather, I don't think we didn't have anything on the Division 10 or custom, did we?
We did not.
Okay, all right. Well, then we'll bring this home then. And then beyond Division 10, there's a catch-all, right? We have long-standing relationships out there. So we have a lot of customers that will come to us, and in this case, they said, "Hey, can you source a water orchid image, print it on a acoustic textile, wrap an acoustic panel, and then inset that into a headboard for a king bed and make 330 of them?" And the answer is yes. And then we just basically pull together our different divisions and make it happen. So this is a couple of different product categories for us, but we do the digital printing, we do the acoustic textiles, right? We do the acoustic panels, and we can do the wood headboard. So something that's a complete custom and a one of a kind at this hotel. Right. And then even with the phenolics, we get a lot of different opportunities. This is a very expensive kitchen, but you could live outdoors, right? They've taken a phenolic teak, real wood, and then we've actually machined kitchen components and put together a really beautiful kitchen. And that's pretty well the catch-all is that custom section, but just to really kind of put a summary together out there, just want to remind everybody again that wood is going to be the most renewable resource out there that you can specify, no matter what the product is, right? Real wood veneer, we talked about being the most economical way to put architectural grade veneer on the wall. And then our paint, planks, panels, and systems, right? That includes everything we went over, whether you want them to be phenolic, acoustic, right? Just your garden variety architectural wood panels, whether you want them outdoors, whether you want them indoors, right? And then moving on to Division 10 to custom. And the beautiful thing about that is we can stay in the same Flitch family for all these. So if you want to make multiple product category types from the same tree, if your job's large enough to do that, absolutely we can entertain that. So at this point, I'd like to thank everybody for listening in. I know I've been talking for probably about 50 minutes here, and we're going to go ahead and open it up again. We can ask branded questions at the end. Again, we love to send samples. So anything you've seen in the presentation, please get with Heather. We'll overnight those to you. And I'm going to go ahead and open it to Heather now. And again, thanks everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Keith, for your time. I was just going to point out there, a couple actual product names that I think I've maybe heard Keith slip once or twice, but
compact
wood veneer. Real wood veneer is what we call our wood veneer wall covering, our flexible wood veneer, and then it's going to translate into our compact wood is the real wood that we utilize in phenolic form. And then carbon zero is what we're going to call any type of plastic laminate application in phenolic form. And then when it comes to acoustical planks, that doesn't necessarily have a super branded name, but our wood veneer wall covering or any of those plastic laminates as well can be utilized into an acoustical form. So I do think we have some questions that have been popped in throughout the chat. If you want to tag team Keith, and maybe we can answer some of these. I think what I've noticed as they were popping up is most of them pertain to pricing. for per square foot, and, there are going to be a lot of custom questions in order to get like a really, cohesive pricing for something like that. So don't know, we want to answer some of those pricing questions off the call. Whitney did have a question about the palm frond, the one that was the simulated plank. Is the palm in the brown core or the color different color, and can the core be painted on site if they do not have a minimum to change the color? So I can answer one of those questions. You cannot paint the color of the core. Absolutely not. I think what they did in that particular project is they cut, sorry, my phone's not working. They cut all the way through, and then they have either a painted chip or a piece of metal back behind the cutout of that palm frond. So, and then I think it's 16 sheets, I believe, is the minimum for a custom core color. So, do you have anything to add to that, Keith? I think that's covers it. And then,
but I think I'm going to stop recording now, and,
yeah.
so we can ask our own internal questions, and then you can use the presentation for review.